So welcome back, everyone. Uh, I hope you've been enjoying the first two sessions, and we have two amazing sections now again lined up for you. The next one is a warm, reflective storytelling conversation, which is titled "Leading with Care: Stories from the Coaching Frontier." And in this fireside chat, we have two speakers. We have Deepa Kannan. She is an ICF Master Certified Coach, an author, an organizational transformation specialist. She's a former CHRO, and she brings powerful blend of presence, emotional intelligence, and strategic leadership to her coaching practice. Deepa has coached senior leaders across India, Europe, Asia, and Middle East, helping them navigate complexities with clarity, courage, and compassion. She is known for her deep listening, grounded presence, and intuitive ability to help leaders uncover blind spots and lead with authenticity. Joining her today is our next speaker, Dexter Valles, our very own Director of Community of Practice at the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter. But he is much more than that. He's also an ICF certified PCC coach. He's authored 12 books and is a seasoned business leader with over 25 years of multi industry leadership experience across India and in global markets. He has led businesses, scaled teams, and shaped culture during high growth and high pressure phases that gives him deep insight into leading both with compassion and accountability. Dexter is respected for his authentic, grounded, no frills leadership that blends candor, care, and a strong understanding of human dynamics. In today's conversation with Deepa and Dexter, we explore how compassion shows up in real world leadership moments. And these moments, a lot of them which are messy ones, the transformational ones, and the ones that often end up testing us. Welcome, Deepa, and welcome, Dexter.
Thanks very much, Anne. Lovely to have you with us, Deepa.
Thank you, Annie and Dexter. I'm happy to share the platform with you.
Fantastic. So I have a couple of questions here lined up for both of you today. And we'll also keep the chat window open. So, audiences, if you have questions around what we have Deepa and Dexter talking about, please feel free to keep writing it. Uh, and then we'll take those up as they come in. Dexter, Deepa, please feel, while I may address it to one of you, feel free to add in, your perspective to this question. So we'll start with you, Deepa. My question is, when we talk about leading with care, what does that mean for you in the terms of coaching, in your coaching present? And what do you think, how it shapes who you become for your client?
That's a good question, Annie, but I wanted to split it into two things. One is leading with care. The other one is the who we are becoming. When you talk about leading with care, it's about what the client really means as care. I would like to bring an example here, wherein this one is something that I faced in my early part of my career, where I was just promoted to a senior leadership role and I had to attend a meeting in Mumbai for a client who's visiting India, and he's a COO, and it's a very important meeting to attend. And I've been a young mother during that time. I'm talking about 15 years before, and just came back from the maternity leave and had to travel. When my boss actually mentioned this to me, I was just thinking, how do I accommodate these 2 days, leaving the child and things like that? I was just trying to get some solution for it. But then immediately he gave a solution with care, saying that I know that you are an young mom, so you can choose not to attend this meeting and we will take care of this meeting. We'll handle everything. That was with genuine care for him as a boss. But for me as a mother, I felt if that choice or decision had been given to me, I would have managed at least to attend 1 day's meeting by flying in the morning and coming back in the evening. Because it was a good opportunity for me. I don't want to miss that. At the same time, wanting to try a balance between that. So something that is being offered with genuine care didn't land up well with me. Now when I look back, rather than giving a solution with care, if we can understand from the client what really care means to them and how we can help with care. If that is something that is clarified with the client, it's very easy for us to navigate their thought process. So that's the answer for the first question that you are asking. For the second one, like who I am as a coach becoming, right? I would say that in a coaching conversation, rather than who I become as a coach, it is more about what the leader or the client is becoming through this coaching session. In fact, the coach has to become invisible in the session. The total presence comes only when the client feels that we are not present physically there. So they should be able to connect to their own self as if there is nobody in the room. So the moment that the coach becomes invisible is the becoming of the coach, that I would say. Dexter, if you have something to add on.
Yeah, the construction industry is booming around me, so you'll hear a lot of hammering going. I've been trying to escape from one place to the other, but it's just following me. So please bear with me and the noise that you may hear. So there are two areas of my life this comes from. One is I decided to learn coaching as a trainer in order to be able to listen more and not teach. I realized along the way that I had an answer for everything that people would ask me in the session, but it wasn't necessarily the answer that maybe my participants could own, because it was not theirs. It was coming from my life. And I decided to learn coaching, and this was in 2008. So the ability to hold space and allow stretch within that space. Stretch meaning answers that come into the space that really aren't yours or aren't what you agree with fully, but are valid because it's valid to everyone else in the room. And to learn to accept that validity is about being able to care. And the moment you can silence your own urgency to answer and strike down and correct and impose what you think, I think people start realizing that you really want to know what they feel. The other is from my own lessons in leadership as a leader. I remember I used to travel very often out, and I would keep checking in back with my team from a whole list of things, whether they had done this, that, or the other. And my second in command, who's now a very senior man in Godrej Industries, he told me, Dexter, you have left, right, to go out. Why don't you stay there? I mean, mentally, and we will handle everything over here. So I was not really listening to their need for autonomy, for them to be able to manage things. I was managing from afar by remote and without knowing what was the circumstances they were in, except that the ones I was imagining. So I also learned to shut up over there and focus on what I was really doing. So I could give space to myself to perform and give them space and that started working really well, because they knew I cared, but I was confident in their resourcefulness to be able to step up and deliver. And that's a very big growing space for people. So that's how I'd like to answer this question.
Thank you both. And an interesting perspective you bring in. We've been hearing since morning that, being compassionate is also the willingness to help. But I think what you're really saying is, and I think Sojaya also made, Dr. Banerjee also made a mention to it, help is not in the definition that comes first to the mind, right? I mean, allow for the choice to be with the person, allow to be also paying attention to what is really being said. Great. Dexter, I want to continue with you on what you're saying. Now, if you were to extend this also further to say, there are also times where leaders will be triggered and they will be overwhelmed, right? So what does a leader then need to do? Or what helps a leader to be able to stay grounded and present?
Well, one of the things I would say is start being a little more aware of your own responses, your own bodily responses, because it's also when you feel stress and the need to jump in, where do you feel it in your body? A constriction in the chest, you start breathing more rapidly, your attention keeps flitting from things to things. There are a lot of intruding thoughts. You aren't able to complete thinking through something peacefully. I think this whole ability to stay mindful and maybe practice a bit of deep breathing, some journaling maybe, and I think above all, before you jump in to respond, take a pause and say, is this really going to help the other person? Is it really helping me or is it helping the other person? And whether you're leading or coaching, I think the focus has to be on the other person, who you're leading as a team leader or who you are coaching, because you are there for them and you are not there for them to support you. I mean, it's the inverted pyramid, so to say, where as a leader, you are actually meant to serve. I think it's a lot about the emotional clarity and agility, which we just heard about. And we really need to ask ourselves what is really needed here. Take yourself out of yourself and say, what is really needed here between you and the team or you and the coach. And uh, in that kind of stillness, when you're asking that question, forcing yourself to be still, I think you can see the shift in energy in yourself and the other people who you are, responding to. And from that kind of chaos, you can bring some kind of clarity, because you don't have to be clear on everything. But if you make a mess of everything that's in it, because as a leader or as a coach, we have so many things on our agenda. We are looking at the end of the tunnel, not the journey through the tunnel. And sometimes being comfortable with the darkness till you see the light is also okay, because in the dark you can actually see more if you're sensing. I mean, like a cat, they are more comfortable in the night, and you've got to have that kind of cat vision in the dark and become comfortable with what you can, manage in the dark. Clarity will come, but you can't force it. You can't force the end of the tunnel to come to you. You have to go towards it. In the meanwhile, if you're going to get anxious, you may never reach it.
Yes, Dexter, just like what you mentioned, the self-awareness of our emotion makes us grounded. That is from an emotion perspective. Whereas from a thought perspective, if you look at the I don't know mindset, the moment when we get into that I don't know mindset is when we ground ourselves, as if that we don't know everything all across. And also another important technique that I usually use is the reframing of the thought that's coming up. Like the moment when something comes up, if it's negative, that might trigger negative emotion, because thoughts triggers emotions, right? So when some thought that comes up that's negative, I try to reframe it positively, because every emotion, be it positive or negative, has its own purpose, has its own lessons, has its own message, has its own need also. So trying to be reflective in that space when we get this emotion, for us to understand the reason behind these emotions and understand the purpose of this emotion, and what we learn from that emotion that is bringing up in this moment, and not having any negative thought to it, not feeding any negative thought to it, so that it multiplies if that happens. So that's one of the technique that we use for us to keep grounded, as if that I don't know anything, let me be open. I'll believe in the person who's next to me, in front of me, or the team. Let them come up and do. So that belief that they can do is something that I think will help the leaders stay grounded.
What's the perspective? I mean, if somebody had asked me that question, I would have said one goal, one your head, for you to just reset yourself. But I mean, from hearing from what we have today through the day, it's also the compassion starts with ourselves, right? And what you're both saying is that it may be in different forms of what applies to you. You either pause, reflect, meditate, give yourself that space, or you go back and, really ask yourself and reframe the question, like you said, you reframe the situation and maybe be open to say that it's okay, I don't know, and I'm willing to learn. Fantastic. What are your thoughts? Either of you could answer. I mean, what does one need to do to be able to help leaders then bring this a balance between compassion and accountability?
Okay. Shall I go first, Dexter? Okay. So when we talk about balance in coaching for compassion and the accountability, in coaching, we don't usually get into that compassion zone. That's not defined in our ICF competencies, at least upfront. It is more about the empathetic zone that we are in coaching. But what I would say is, even in coaching, we can touch that compassionate zone of doing in a way that we are providing that safe space for them. We are creating that psychological environment, safe environment for them to open up. And we are also holding that space for them to reflect. And we are believing in them, helping them to navigate the thought process. So all these things are something that we are doing for them. So that's the compassion space that we can get into from the empathetic space as a coach, because from an accountability perspective, it lies in the client. Any actions that's coming up from the coaching session, the client is fully accountable for their own actions, for their own thoughts, for their own emotions, everything. But all we could do is just the partnering. That partnering can be in a compassionate ground in terms of helping them navigating the thought process rather than doing something for them. And if at all we are doing, that should be the holding the space that we have for themselves to reflect on them. So that's the space from empathy to compassion, that interface where we can use for coaching is my philosophy.
I agree. I think these things coexist, but they're on the other side of the coin. It's the same coin with two faces. So the thing is, I don't know whether there is a balance in anything. It's about being able to express enough of each. And in a way, compassion is the ability to have those honest conversations with people to explore both the areas of empathy and expectations. Because compassion is not about releasing accountability and allowing for poor performance. Because all of us have roles to play and things to do, and life must, be lived to its fullest expectation as far as possible. Whatever we commit to, if there is too much of compassion, we will not feel the sense of accountability, and particularly in organizations or in areas in which you have teams and things like that. So even with your coachee, for example, as a coach, you will need to be able to look at both sides of the coin. And it's essentially an act of respect for people whom you either lead or coach, to be able to help them lift themselves up and move towards the shared purpose that they have along with their teams, and to ask, what's possible in this situation, and not give people enough rope to escape. I wouldn't use the word escape because that seems a little too severe, but to release themselves from their commitments too easily. There has to be enough exploration with empathy of the expectations that are there. And how does one deal with it? You may not have all the answers, but the thing is to be able to try. And as long as accountability is used along with compassion, there is care and there is commitment that works together, and caring commitment as well.
And in your experience, Dexter, while you've tried to, try to lead this, what usually has ended up being roadblocks for leaders?
Oh, I mean, I can look at myself and the targets we had set, for immense growth and thing, which is even more today. I mean, what I thought was steep in those days, about 40 years ago, is much more steep today. I think probably the fear of failure, the fear of not being able to, deal with what you are given, and being viewed as inadequate and ineffective. And ultimately, we all are trying for some position in organizations also. It's not that we are only here to deliver results. It's because I can deliver result. I also want to ascend the ladder in the organization. So the whole thing, the fear of missing out, the fear of not being counted, not being called dependable or reliable, the inability to live up to the expectations of my team who are looking at me to spearhead as a leader for them. And therefore, I think the whole thing is about this base emotion called fear. And we just came through sessions which talked about emotions. And you cannot wish fear away. It's always going to be there. The thing is, how do you deal with it? How do you manage it? How do you accept it and allow it to be present? And at the same time, allow other emotions like courage, confidence, acceptance, and the ability to stay grounded with that fear. I mean, all of us go through life with fears. They tend to accentuate at certain points in time, and we probably give it more than its due importance at that kind of time. So I think really leaders in particular deal with a lot of that, in your face fear.
I agree with that fear of failure that Dexter brought in. But to add on to it, what is blocking a leader actually from having the genuine care is, I feel sometimes there is a possibility that we get attached to it. When something has been, built right from the scratch for so many years, with all our leadership, at some point in time, we have to let go of things. That attachment has to be let go. And if that is not being happening, is where it becomes a blocker. Because in that space, we instead of being giving the genuine care, it becomes a control. So there's a thin line between the care and control and listening and obeying too. We say that, okay, I want people to listen to me, but then what actually we might implicitly expect is for them to obey just because that attachment is there. Thus, because I've seen this in coaching community itself, and that's what is surprising to me, when somebody is so attached to something which they have built over a period of time, right from the scratch, and it has to be given to someone else at the next level leadership. There is some let go, there is some delegation. It's okay. It's not going to be the same way that we had brought it, or we had actually grown it. It's going to be different, but we should get to the space where we let go of things at times without expecting for those results, without being in that I know mindset. These are all some of the blockers. If you look at most of the leaders come from, you know what, I know this is what would happen. Whereas nobody knows everything. So that I know mindset and attaching ourselves to the results. And when we are attaching ourselves to the results, that is also a blocker because we will not be able to care for other things. That genuine care will miss when we are only focusing on our results.
So we've been, I hear what you're saying is, and fairly, yes, there are these situations, the environment that we are in, where, like we spoke earlier, that, it is not seen as a strategic strength, right? Being compassionate. And we also spoke about, the creating a psychologically safe space. Now, while the speakers before did talk about the emphasis around it, so, do you have tips for the audience to say, how does a leader then build that space? I mean, how does a leader create an environment where people feel comfortable to talk? I mean, doing it for yourself, yes, but also that making it available for people to say that it's okay. Like you're saying, that you don't know, you're in a space of not knowing, and allowing that understanding for everybody. How does one really work that out?
To my knowledge, I feel that actions has more power and the being has more power and energy. The moment we start living that in ourselves, that energy radiates. So it radiates through our authenticity. It radiates through our vulnerability. It radiates through our transparency. And when these things combine, it gives an energy that spreads to create the psychological safety for the team members to open themselves. I run a coach training institute, BK Excellence, and I usually do what I do is the first few weeks, it won't be any content, it won't be any training, it won't be any practice or competencies. It will purely just be opening ourselves. And the first opening will happen from the mentors, sharing their insights, their thought process, their knowledge, and being vulnerable. And the moment we start releasing that energy from us, this automatically opens up the safe environment for the clients or the team who is actually looking for that environment. So that being generates an energy, and that energy makes others to also open up. And
Dexter,
that's
you
my
had
thought,
some
Dexter.
thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's the whole part of growing and creating something new, whether it is in business or it is in life, is about taking risk. And as a leader, how do you respond when your people take risks? And I think people, your team and people are watching. Are you being overly critical? Are you being over judgmental? Do you come with this is right, that is wrong? Or how much space are you willing to give when people take risk? And how many questions are you able to ask around the risk rather than dodge it or try and overprotect? And give people the safe way, uh, because the safe way will lead you to what you have committed as goals. The thing is, do you put a cap on what you want to achieve? Very often, I've seen this because I've committed something, I want to go only there, not beyond. Because going beyond means taking a risk and I may fail. The thing is, you know, a sea change cannot be brought about by being conservative in the way you go about without risk or hedging risk too much. You need to be able to step out, be bold, and work with it. Now, if your team is doing that, you need to be available to them to manage both the accountability and the compassion around it. And if they can see that you are there and that you will catch them if they fall, and privately hold them accountable and publicly be available, that's the other thing. Then they know that you really do care and that they can actually feel safe with you. uh, you will actually find them telling you privately or sometimes even in the team meeting what are their real fears and what do they really fear, especially if you declare your own vulnerability. And as Deepa had said earlier, to say, I don't know, when you can show vulnerability, it means you can accept vulnerability of others. So it's like, going into the battlefield without armor in that sense, because otherwise the leader comes fully armed and protected.
Yeah. And like Dr. Sujaya Banerjee was saying some time back, I mean, in corporate worlds, we are really not getting into what the armed forces get in. So nobody's going to really die there, right? So it's okay to move in, being a little bit vulnerable. Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Deepa and Dexter. Please, if you have questions that you might want to ask them through, they're talking about their life experiences, they're sharing real stories, to be able to bring the practical aspects of what you've heard so far. Please put in your messages on the chat screen or raise your hands and we'll take it up. I'm going to flip the coin for both of you now, and this is also in line with what somebody asked earlier. Is While yes, there's a lot that leaders need to be doing, there is also a point of time when somebody said earlier how it also gets misused. And so how does a leader then know that are we overcaring or are we now stepping in, like you said, Deepa, ask what is needed, let the choice be with the person. So how do we know that we're not getting into that mode of rescuing and being knight in shining armors or whatever, Wonder Women for people?
Yeah. So this is that borderline that we are talking about. How to understand that are we crossing that border or not? So basically, it is about slowing down. When we are at a speed, we might not be noticing a lot of things that's coming up. But when we really slow down, when we pause, when we reflect, there's a lot many things that we start noticing from the other side. Like the fan, which is running in the full speed, we might not be able to notice its pattern, blades. We don't even know how many blades it has. The same way, when we slow down, there are a lot of things that we can notice, which we would have missed out in the speeding that we had been going through. I just remember a small example here where one of my coach training participant was bringing up this case wherein she used to celebrate birthdays, okay, because they were in a place where not much socializing happens, not much personal sharing happens. So they wanted to celebrate the team members or people around them, their birthday parties. And every time when there is a birthday comes up for each member, they used to buy a cake, cut, to get to the room, celebrate, everything happens. Maybe outside of office hours, or I don't know. But then one day, when she slowed down for some other reasons, maybe because of health or something like that, she missed one of the uh, team member or the friend's birthday party. Surprisingly, nobody brought that up as an issue. Nobody brought that up as an concern, why didn't happen, because that is something that she was expecting. Because it didn't happen, what others might think, they might have felt bad about it, or they might have complaining about. Nothing happened. Then on reflection is when she found that, and she went and spoke to that person for whom the birthday was. Why you didn't ask anything? Because why it was not celebrated and things like that. That person said that, you know what, I would like my birthday to be privately celebrated. So that moment is when this person realized that I had been barging into everyone's birthday parties so far, assuming that I'm socializing, I'm helping them get out of all this depression and other things. So we are getting together. That moment is a realization for her to understand that it is not their need, it is my need. Whatever parties or socialization is my need, not the other person's need. So in that speeding moment of, you know what, I have to do this, I have to do that, I need to do this, we think that we are helping others taking initiatives. But what actually turns around to be is something different. So when we really slow down, pause and reflect and clarify what exactly is something that they might look for, that is something that would help us not cross that line or the border of rescuing, getting into rescuing or overcarrying. Allowing them to be themselves. That's more important actually. What they like might be different from what we like.
Dexter, do you have any thoughts?
I have two funny incidents to talk about. One is I've just come back from Chandigarh from a Punjabi wedding. My college friend's daughter was getting married, and his wife, across the 3 days we were there, and more before that, was extremely hassled. And she was unable to stand still even for a moment to greet people because she was here, there, and everywhere attending to everything. And the entire burdens and problems of the whole event across all 3 days seemed to be resting very heavily on her shoulders. And all we were telling her to do is relax, chill, breathe, sit down here, have a drink, eat something. Don't be available to everybody, because obviously she was micromanaging everything despite having event managers who were doing a damn good job. But her anxiety to be available to everybody and to do everything and to get a good job done, after all, her daughter was getting married, and to make sure that the daughter had a great experience, was creating tremendous problems for her. Finally, at the end of it, she was absolutely exhausted. The thing is that you don't have to have all the answers. There are people available. If you rely enough on people and tell them you are relying on them, that's part of the unarmoring also of the armor that you seem to wear. Because if you're going clanking around in your armor, people will actually stay out of the way, because they say if you stumble and fall, we can't, come and help you get up, because you're going to be even more angry. So people stay out of your way. So if as a leader you find people are either coming to you too often to ask for everything and solve their problems, it means you're micromanaging. If they're not coming at all, it means they're staying clear of you because they don't know how you're going to respond. Recently, my daughter, told me when I was asking her a lot of questions about what she was doing. She says, Dad, I'm grown up. So I said, oh, yes, of course, you're going to be 21. She says, no, I've been grown up for the past 5 years. You've just not noticed. And I think that really made me think about, what I'm doing as a parent, and that am I really giving her space to grow up? She obviously knows she is. I'm not acknowledging it, and that wasn't a very good feeling. So I think as leaders also, you need to know your team is grown up. As a coach, you need to know your coachee is a grown up. We are both here to be able to, maybe soften the edges of life, round the edges of life, or show some kind of direction. Sometimes provide a crack or a chink in the armor through which the light falls through. And then it can be wide. Sometimes you're wearing the armor, the wrong armor, or armor for the wrong reasons. So our job as a coach or a leader is to unarm, disarm, and be available, both ourselves and for our people.
In fact, even to what you've been saying, I remember sometimes when you talk to leaders to say that you need to be more compassionate, and the response is automatic. I've done this before, and when I go ahead and do that, people don't respond the way I expect them to. Not realizes that, like we've been saying, that you're pushing your agenda versus what people really want, and obviously that the response is not aligned because it's not really what was required. Great. So we have another question on the chat, and I know you've answered Robin Dexter. Uh, Anupam Chaturvedi asks us, and either of you could respond, how importantly is the attitude or the receptibility of the beneficiary of our coaching basic instinct of compassion?
I think as leaders, we need to model what we want our team to be. So when we look to them for support, for example, and are ourselves receptive to receiving help and support, they will also learn that they can be receptive. Whatever you do, you need to model. Whether you're a leader or a parent, you need to model that, because people tend to copy what they see in action rather than what they're told. I mean, we can be told so many things, but what we actually see is what we copy. So the best way to produce that receptibility in the person receiving it is to do that yourself.
That's what is going to set the culture for the organization. Sort of it's being formed by the leaders of that top level, how they are, and that's what is going to set the culture. So whatever culture that the organization have to follow, it is the leaders who have to create that and then live that culture.
So I have an interesting example. I mean, I'm remembering it suddenly because this was years ago, when I was in the corporate world and I had a boss who was the general manager in charge of international operations, and I was looking after Africa very early in my career. And we went to Nigeria, and he insisted on coming with me to see what the market was like. And he's the guy who normally went to Europe and Americas. And I said, oh, you're coming with me? Fine. Africa is a very different place. So we went to Nigeria first, and over there we took a taxi from the hotel and went to meet this possible client in a industrial area. And after the meeting, we thought he would, drop us somewhere. They didn't have any cars, and we had already sent our car away because we hired them to drop over there. Now we said, how do we go? And there was this long dusty road, and about 1 kilometer down the road was a taxi stand. Now, 1 kilometer on a dusty road in Lagos with luggage, and we had, the airline pilots have this bag. That was a bag that I used to carry full of catalogs. And then I had this collapsible bag, this nylon bag with the zippers that would extend to about 3 feet in height with wheels on it, which were full of our samples, including 2 ceiling fans, one water filter, and things like that. Now, what to do with this? We went on the road, my boss in his full suit and me in my full suit in the baking sun, trying to figure out how to roll this bag on a very bad road. So we decided we hold one handle each. I said, okay, thank you very much, because I was as it is holding this. So he said, we'll take turns, Dexter. Sometime you hold that bag and then I'll hold it. And I said, my God, I mean, this is our GM, I mean, he's the guy who expects excellence. He should be firing me for not thinking about keeping the cab. So as we were walking, he saw one of these Nigerian women with big cloth bundles on their head, huge bundles. This is how they carry stuff. He said, "Oh, maybe we can do this." So I thought maybe he's going to make me carry it. Instead, he took the bag, put it on his head, and started walking with it. Now, this is leadership in action. I don't know whether you'd call it compassionate or caring, but there was authenticity about sharing the load, about sharing the burden, and being available in the moment, and not finding fault so much as what do we do with where we are and what we have on hand. And we never talked about it later on, except for me to thank him for doing all that. And he said, no, that's quite okay. When we are out here together, he says, you must forget that I'm the boss and things like that. After all, we are partners in this whole thing. And I thought that was wonderful. I was wanting to remind him at the review that, you remember what you said there? We are partners in this whole thing. But there's a whole lot of interesting conversations that come out when you act the part that you want to be, and you model it, even for a small moment in time. If you can do that, people will excuse you for a lot of other moments in time when you can't manage it or you fail to manage it.
I remember similarly, there at one point of time I moved from one city to the other city as part of my job, and the CEO of the company happened to travel to this location, and so I mean I was told to move, right? So I thought it's organization and it was my job to move, right? But the CEO came in and he sat across the table. So you naturally stand up when the CEO comes. He said, he sat across the table, and I'm wondering why he's coming in. What is he wanting to ask? When he just comes and tells me, "How are you feeling? I mean, I know we've moved you between locations multiple times, but have you settled in now?" And I mean, nothing changed in my life. I had a lot of problems because of moving between places, and it made a huge impact financially. But the fact that he asked me this question, I was more than happy to take up, those next transfers that were offered to me, even though it meant that there was disruption of work. So a little small statement, and the whole act of walking into my desk and sitting down opposite me, instead of saying that let her come into my room and then I will ask her how she is settling in, made so much of a difference.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think we have Anupam has raised his hands.
And there's a
Yeah.
question from Aniket also.
Yes, but to both the D's. So it
Just,
is D and B.
just, just a short question. I have worked in a German environment. Now, German environment, it's a top-down approach for leadership also. So I had a number of situations where we had the leader of the team who was accepted. Suppose he had 5 people working under him. Uh, 4 would accept his leadership, his or her leadership, but 1 would not, which is the German kind of independent way of thinking. Now, do what you like. You be as compassionate, be as thoughtful, mindful of this person. This guy is not going to respond because he doesn't accept you as a leader. Now, that's the situation. That's what I said, whether the client or the coachee or whoever the subordinate is even receptive to what you are trying to take them on a path, it gets impossible. Is there a situation, is there a solution to this? How does leader carry everybody with him? Imran.
Okay. So here I just think that when we have that responsibility in terms of carrying it on my shoulder, how a leader should carry everyone. Like how can they allow everyone to travel? Is where we need to shift that mindset and to look at how that shift can happen within us. That would allow others to get inspired from us. It might take its own sweet time. It's not going to happen overnight. But what is the mindset shift that is required from my side that will allow people to inspire and follow?
Yeah, I think one is to say that we can't win everybody over in the world. But it's important to be able to get along with as many people as you can. in a particular way. So you have to probably find out how each person responds to you and to the job, and what are the areas in which they find discomfort. Uh, when people tend to oppose leadership, it is usually because they don't feel heard or acknowledged sometimes, or they feel that they are being imposed on. So there is a lot of experiments. There's no one answer for this. One is to give them some airtime, rotating leadership in certain areas you lead. The whole ability of situational leadership, which has been talked about, the Blanchard model and things like that. There are some people who are better than you in whatever, in some areas. In those areas, if you try and lead them, then it becomes a problem. To be able to find out which job and in what situation people do better than others or than even you is all about acknowledging alternate leadership, because we are not here to be permanently leaders. As leaders, we also need to learn to be followers, but to be able to add to the purpose and to the passion towards that purpose. So how do you, rather than lead, create passion for the shared purpose? That is where one must investigate what drives this person who's not listening to me, and how can I accentuate what drives that person, so that in my leadership and in my team, that person seems to find that passion for the purpose and doesn't need me. It's all about saying, how do you get rid of me quickly as a leader, but acknowledge me as someone who's putting things together for you, with you. And I think we have to redefine our idea of leadership as well in many ways.
And this is what happens in coaching also. When we get into a contract, we find connection, the client coach connection. If that connection or sync is not happening, it's okay. It's okay to have that contract cancelled or not taken up, and or taken, doing it through some other reference. So in leadership, it could be maybe if it is not working with me, at least with whom it is working with. What type of leadership or what type of leader this person is actually inclined towards, just delegate it to that person and then get things done through that person. So there's a lot of different ways that we could handle it, like what Dexter was mentioning about, and it all requires that time and patience for us to work around and make that relationship work.
Very true, very true. To answer Aniket's thing, at least my constant experience is that compassion needs time and we don't have time. Leaders to get things done. Time is always something that is in extremely short supply. And for anything like compassion, sometimes it seems unnecessary to some people, that, because they think of compassion as being soft, as being weak, but it is actually a strength. So the whole orientation around compassion, as they say, high quality goods are cheaper than low quality goods. Spending time on compassion also crashes the time that you need to do something in, because it allows people to rise up and fulfill their potential, because they feel seen, heard, acknowledged, and given responsibility to do. They tend to do things beyond your expectations. But if you keep people within expectations, they are underperforming, and therefore will always take a longer time than if you release them to do what they can do. And yes, mistakes will happen. Nobody is perfect in this world, but you've got to be able to understand how to roll with this. And so it's always a balance. It's about practice. It's not about, just imagining it.
So switching it from your time waster to time investment to change the perspective. Sorry, Deepa, you were saying something.
I was just saying, with respect to the time, if you look at, we have to switch hats. Coaching doesn't work overnight. And it requires a people development, time invested on it. So if you have a tight deadline target to complete in today or tomorrow, immediately or something, at that point in time, coaching, I don't know how effective it would be. Coaching is for people development. When you are really investing the time and effort to develop a person, go for it. But it's going to be a long term, so that it gives the productivity in a long term.
Okay, so I think we're almost towards the end of our time, but maybe we'll just take just one last tip that you might want to give to the audience here in terms of inner qualities, I mean, curiosity, humility, courage, and presence. Uh, what enables deep listening beyond words?
To me, I think the inner quality of developing our own intuition along with the presence is very important because when we start coaching people, that intuition brings in more observations on the patterns that we are uncovering. And for that, it requires a lot of self-awareness for us also as a leader. Apart from the humility, the curiosity, apart from the presence, it requires a lot of self-awareness of our own. And that gives that intuition of where exactly we are going, what's happening around, and if there is any patterns that's coming up. So those are few things that I feel that it would help as a coach that we need to develop for us to be better coaches and leaders.
I think in EQ, we keep saying be curious rather than judge. The more curious you are, the more open you are to receive things that you have not thought of or didn't imagine, and accept that, they say you are born with a fragment of the world in your palm. But that fragment is not the world. The more you are able to help other people open their palms and look at the fragments of the world they are holding and join them all together, you get close to what the world is, around you. And I think the humility that we don't hold the answers of the world in our hands, and that we really need to join hands and join fragments of the world and ideas of the world together, will also give us that courage to stay with the discomfort that we don't have the full picture. And we've got to make the effort to create that picture by going out, reaching out, joining worlds, joining hands, joining minds together. And being present in this whole process, I think, is what connects us through the whole process of being curious, being humble, and courageous. Being present in every moment, the areas of comfort, discomfort, knowing, not knowing, having all the answers, not having all the answers, but being there, not being absent.
Thank you so much, Dexter and Deepa. I think the audience here got insights in terms, of course, from your experiences, but also what works on the ground, what helps them roll up the sleeves and then move ahead. So, if any of you have questions, please continue to put it in chat. I'm being mindful of the time. So we are going to move to the next section. But before we do, Dexter and Deepa, we have a small token of appreciation, which we will be emailing to you, Nandini, if you are around, and if we can put that up on the screen while I then introduce the next speaker. Deepa Dexter, thank you. Our next speaker and the final session is on compassion in action, from personal awareness to organization impact. This brings together inner transformation and external leadership impact. The speaker for this section is Anindita Mukherjee. She is a transformational leadership coach, facilitator, healer, and an ICF PCC coach. She is known for helping leaders deepen emotional awareness and elevate collective well-being. She works with leaders globally to translate inner clarity into measurable culture and performance outcomes. Anindita, welcome. We are delighted to have you here today to close the day for us. So over to you, Anindita. Mohan, I see you have your hand raised. If you could just type in your question in the chat screen, and we'll respond to that.
No
But over to you,
apologies.
Anindita. Over to you, Anindita.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of you. Such insightful sessions throughout the day. And thank you for having me here. It's lovely to be part of this. So, firstly, folks, this is not my session. This is all of our session, and we are going to co-create something. That is the intention. So I would love it if possible, if you all can come on camera and stay on camera. I would love to see your faces as well as hear out from you. Yes, I could see Bharati, your hi. Yes. So lovely, lovely. I see the lovely faces. Thank you so much for coming here, for coming on camera. So the first question is a coaching question. We have enriched our minds so much for so long. How are we feeling at this point in time? Please use the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and tell me, how are we all feeling at this point? Enlightened, good, enriched, happy, reflective, introspective. Yeah, so quite a few good words. Delighted, soaking in the wisdom, absorbing. Great, great words. And this is the beginning of compassion in action that coaches really bring to the table for all of us all the time, including two coaches, right? We all love to get coached because we are asked, how are you feeling? And to be able to check with ourselves how we are feeling from time to time is really the first act of compassion that we can introduce to ourselves and to systems. From personal to organizational transformation, this does have a great impact already, right? So now again, more questions. I'll first ask you some questions and then get into some discussions on it. So we are talking about person also and organization also. So I want to ask you, who deserves our compassion the most? No right or wrong answer, of course. What is it that you think deserves our compassion the most? Us, ourselves, everybody who are unheard, ourselves. Us first, ourselves. Organization is a legal entity, everyone who can feel. Ourselves, the one in pain. Yeah, lovely answers. So I see quite a lot of ourselves and the one who is unheard, who's in pain, uh, an inside out process. Yes, absolutely. Starting with ourselves first. Yes. Now, let's take one organizational scenario, any organizational scenario. You have your boss, you have your your subordinates, your peers, your clients, your customers. You have so many people, right? So many stakeholders in any organizational scenario. When you imagine that scenario, who do you think deserves your compassion the most? Does the answer remain the same or does it change in any way? And also you can say who deserves it the least, if you want to add that. Your subordinates and peers. Everyone around me, especially those who appear distressed. Yes. Same answer, the oxygen mask in aeroplanes. Yes. Ourselves first. Yeah. Lovely answers. If anyone wants to share anything please do so in the mic. Yes. Someone was saying something. Please feel free to unmute yourself and give me an answer or two. Compassion starts from us with your immediate subordinates and to others. Yeah. Yes. So we have a wise audience here that the majority says that, yes, it starts with me and then it spreads outside. And then many said the peers, the subordinates, they need our compassion the most. Lovely answer. I have one last question before I begin. Do you think that compassion has reduced or increased in organizations over a period of time? over some decades or some years post-pandemic, so on, reduced. What do you think? Reduced drastically, currently reducing, gone in the backdrop. People who experienced the most pain during pandemic. Yes. Reduced despite increased awareness. Depends on the organizational culture, but generally reducing. Again, lovely answers. Keep them coming. Increased awareness for the need of it. Understanding of compassion has not evolved. Low emotional charge, burnout, low optimism, and low trust. Low empathy. COVID announced the fragility of life, and now we are in a hurry, and that often reduces compassion. Yes, absolutely. Very wise answers, of course. So let me begin with a story from a long time back when I was beginning my career as a trainer. Okay. So on one end, I was working with people, not coaching in organizations. I was working with people. And then on the other hand, I was training in organizations. I was also learning training. So this is a few decades back, right? 1.5 decades. The thing I realized, the pattern that was happening in training was every time you are learning anything, you are told that you need to take care of others. For example, in a customer service training, you are told, you don't need to shout. You should not shout at your customers. If they shout at you, you should absorb it. Customer is the king, and depending on how you behave with them, your organization's image would be dependent, right? Such kind of things. If you are doing a leadership training, you are telling leaders how you need to take care of your subordinates. In a team building, we are talking about how we need to talk about deal with our peers, how we need to be nice with our peers, with our teams. And there would be something separate, maybe a stress management training that would say, breathe more and do all that. My question, being a very rebellious person, I found it very difficult to train like this. Why? Because I felt the personal care you are talking about is very, very disconnected from the actual what you are teaching people on take customer service and leadership and teamwork. How will someone feel de-stressed if they are absorbing complaints and abuses from customers? This has to be part of your customer service training. How are you going to deal with your distress? When leaders are also getting stressed because of their subordinates, we need to tell leaders in leadership, how do you need to manage your distress? How can you be compassionate toward yourself at that point in time? So this is one thing we are doing. We were not teaching compassion to people for themselves in connection to the services they are giving. And then we are teaching them some techniques to do compassion, right? So now I want to ask you, do you think compassion is something we need to learn? Or do you think compassion is an instinct? Or kindness is an instinct? Or is it something we need to learn? Displayed behavior, practice. Absolutely. You can also add, the kindness, the instinct for the the feeling behind the compassion. Is that something that we have, or compassion has to move from your head to heart? Okay, it has to come from the heart. Yes, right. So compassion has to come from the heart. Rightly said. It is also a displayed behavior. Yes, there is authentic, genuine feeling for someone suffering, and then there is pretension. Exactly. Exactly, this is the thing. So, when we are telling people, just absorb things, just take care of others, what we are really saying is that you display the compassion, but you don't feel it inside. So, we are disconnecting people from their instinct, and we are telling them to externally show compassion to others by saying, okay, this is the right way to compassion. You do not know, you instinctually do not know how to be compassionate, how to be kind, how to be empathic, but you externally show it. So there are two parts to it. One is we are teaching, which is good. We are teaching them, this is the right kind of behavior. There's nothing wrong with it. What is wrong is when we are cutting that away from self-compassion and instincts. We are also saying that do not show emotions. Do not be emotional. We have seen this, we have heard this question throughout our discussion today in all the sessions, that we are told we do not expect you to show this kind of emotion. We don't expect you to be this. We don't expect you to be that. We don't expect you to be you. So that is the problem. We are cutting off instinct from actual doing. That is the problem. So now I would like to hear from a few of you. What do you think about this? You can turn on your microphone and tell me, what do you think about this? Have you experienced something like this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Anything counts. Or any question that is coming up for you at this point in time.
Could you repeat that? Think about what? One more time, please.
Yeah, so whatever we have been discussing, that we have been separated from our instinct, from our feeling of compassion, right? Compassion is an action, 100%. But there is a feeling that is disconnected from this compassion. What do you think about that? Yes, please.
If I'm a customer service agent, associate, and if somebody is shouting at me over the phone, my instinct will be either self-pity or anger. How do I overcome that? Which is a very natural instinct.
Right, right. So I would like to ask you at this point, because you have been in this field, what do you do generally?
If I'm not a customer service associate,
Of
but
course.
otherwise people do get angry at me for some reason or the other.
Yeah.
So I listen to them and I tell myself they must be going through something, or maybe I've actually made a mistake. Let me try to see if I can find something. That's how I do.
Right. Right.
And sure, I don't retaliate.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I would also like to ask you, if you are calling a customer service agent, right? So how do you, suppose you are very busy or you are really distressed, how do you like to behave in a way that, uh, that is good, that is compassionate?
It's difficult, really difficult. When you spend money on something and you don't get the worth of it, I mean, at that point of time, you think of value for money, you don't think of compassion.
Right. Right. So that is the gap, I'm coming to you. Ruben, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think there is a gap between direction the compassion is going. One thing that I have found useful is to actually step into what we call reflective listening. Just repeating back what we heard, no judgment, nothing. And I submit that that can actually diffuse whatever ticking bomb is behind the scene. Just because the person begins to feel that I'm not here to deflect their pain, I'm just actually listening. And that's my first step, and that's where I will stop.
Yeah, yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, I think Bharti wants to share something, and Anupam wants to share something, and wants to share something. Yeah, please go on one by one. Yeah.
Hi, Anindita. Thank you so much. And in fact, I have worked in the front end of the bank, so with the customers. So me joining in coaching is only the subsequent journey with customer service with coaching. Because first thing is, I think we need to listen to them, whether you're a coach or a customer service rep or associate. And of course, as a human, we all react, but the having listened to them by practice over and over again and again, I think we put ourselves in their shoes, so then automatically it sinks in your system. Yes, what they say makes sense because they have invested and they have their own feelings and they have their own attachments. In our case, we shouldn't get attached with their emotions, rather we listen fully. I think the same thing applicable here as well. So that is what I correlate with both industries and the feelings, and it is important we involve ourselves or intervene into the compassion in any profession you take. It's very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Anupam wants to share something here.
Just two points. One is that we, as we get educated, we have to probably fine tune our basic instincts because we're born with some basic instincts and we have to grow beyond. And second is sense of responsibility. So as you grow within an organization, your responsibilities change, and you should be able to take those responsibilities upfront, for which compassion is a very integral part of that role. So just growing professionally and as a human being. Yeah.
Absolutely. We need to refine our instinct. And yes, I also saw Dexter had a few comments to make there. Yes, absolutely. It is an instinct also. Anne wants to share something.
Oh, I was just saying that Bharati had a hand.
Yeah. All right. So yes, it is an instinct. It is an action. And we can definitely learn some skills on the outer end to do better empathy, better listening, better everything, customer service, leadership, teamwork. We can learn some skills on the outside. But if that thing is disconnected from the inside, that is a problem. Now, how to get off that disconnection? I'll come to that. But for now, I just want to point out since I took this customer service example, have you called up customer service agents and heard, hello, ma'am, how can I help you? Have you heard this? Have any of you heard this? Yes, thank you for calling in. Have you heard this?
Many times.
I'm sure all of you have heard this, right? So this is the result. This is the result that happens when we disconnect people, when we teach them, we have taught them, ask, how can I help you? But you have disconnected them from their emotion. This is what happens. And as we go up, we are going bottom up today from these agents to leaders. When we go to the leadership level, we learn good communication. We learn that we cannot say, how can I help you? Right? So the communication improves and everything, but that feeling part of it remains the same. And what we can call this is performative compassion rather than real compassion. And we cannot really perform it well, no matter what. And that is where that authenticity part, as well as coherence, as I say it, connection from within, connecting your inside and your outside. That when that goes away, you cannot. People get to know it. In the last 2 years, the most searched word in the internet was authenticity. And people have learned to now sense that authenticity and ask for that authenticity. So this is what. The other question that I had asked you was, has it increased or decreased in organizations over the years? First, I would like to point out that some decades back, we did not have DEI, we did not have flexi hours, we did not have so many, employee engagement and mental health talks, employee assistance programs, and so many other things, right? Parental leave, and so many things we did not have before. We did not have this language of empathy and compassion and authenticity. We did not have this language before, right? So what sense do we make out of it? Has it increased then in organizations? What do you think? One would expect it to increase, but only research would reveal the truth. I think organizations are aping actions without really reflecting what works for them or needed by them. Yes, Robin wants to say something.
Yeah, I was just hypothesizing, you just mentioned something powerful, performative compassion. And I submit that a lot of times, these organizations who have a barrage of these buzzwords floating around, they are actually also performing. They're not really living it. They're not authentic. They're not actually bringing in the courage of vulnerability. And that oftentimes is quite visible by the bystanders. They can see, and all you can see behind the scenes is this classic eye roll of regular employees where they don't trust their leaders because they're just hearing the words, but they're not seeing the walk behind the talk. And so that's my long sentence on that as a reaction.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And yes, Anupam, yes, absolutely. I hear that compassion may not be an attribute the leadership may be looking for as performance has taken precedence. Absolutely. Performance, as I see it, performance had always taken precedence in organizations, always. And before, probably they would not even allow discussions on compassion and say, okay, we are not even going to waste our time and money on that. Even that discussion, even the policies were not there, right? Today we have those. But yes, on the policy level, it has increased, but on the practical ground, it has probably decreased. And it is nobody's fault. It is probably no one person's fault, and none of us know why this is happening. Right? Like none of us say, okay, one mid-level person would say, oh, the seniors have done it, the administration has done it. The juniors would say, my manager has done it. The seniors would say, people don't take ownership. We need to do this, we need to do that, right? So nobody knows what's going on. There's chaos. So on practical ground, what has happened? Ambiguity has increased, uncertainty has increased, like we have discussed so many times. We keep discussing every time something comes, that VUCA and Bani thing always comes up, right? So that has increased, and none of us know how the things are increasing. Yes, Anupam wants to share something.
Yeah, just to share with you that I was recently in the US, and there were a lot of debates on the impact of AI on human behavior and what is the future for the job scene. And one of the most interesting things was that AI is going to make you a better human, because human values cannot be infused into an AI, and that's what you are going to sharpen. So probably we'll see an era where there are better human beings than what we are today. Very interesting and good observation. I agreed with that completely.
Right, right. Regarding AI, we are having a lot of discussions on AI, and we have heard, such things are coming up. People are committing suicide and all that because of AI, they are saying. So I was thinking, if a person goes to AI and says, I want to commit suicide, and somehow they had the intelligence, because when you go and type in AI, help me commit suicide, AI would say, no, I cannot help you in that. But they had enough intelligence to actually, get past that filter and convince AI to tell them how to commit suicide. But on the other hand, they did not have the uh, intelligence at that point to tell AI, hey AI, help me get out of my distress, or help me solve my problem. And so AI is like, there was a story that, or some kind of a lesson, moral story, that when somebody pushes you, you are holding a cup and someone pushes you and you spill your coffee. Okay, what does that mean? That does not mean that. What that means was that your cup had coffee. So if it has coffee, you will spill the coffee. If you have poison in it, you will spill the poison. So basically, what you have inside, AI will bring that out more. Right. So that is the thing with AI. AI does not have ethics, like you said. You have to give that to AI. So yeah, so overall, so in getting back to the discussion, yes, so performative things have increased, policy level things have increased, whereas practical thing has decreased. I was researching that during COVID-19, we went into a firefighting mode, because we needed things to happen fast. We were functioning in crisis, fast changes were happening, people were working long hours and all that. There were layoffs, and 6 people were doing 10 people's job. Then you are working at home, but your work hours were not respected, and every time anybody can call you at any time, and so on. Post COVID-19, this became the norm. 6 people have to do now 10 people's job that 10 people were doing before COVID. Now, the flexi work hours have become too much flexible, and everyone has to work at any hour. They cannot draw boundaries. Then there are other things that may have happened, like, the silos may have increased because people were not seeing each other physically, and other things may have happened. But actually, COVID-19 increased these kind of things. Right now, people are saying what before they were working at home. Now companies are calling them back. But again, whatever hours they were working during COVID-19 because of the firefighting, they have to work for those hours also, and also spend time traveling and everything else also, right? So, so this has increased after COVID-19 also. right? So this being the scenario, now I want to ask you, what do you think? What do you think is a solution for this at this point? And who takes the onus for this? Who changes the situations? The collective, us. Leaders need to stop, take a step back, and play the long game. Work matrix has probably changed forever.
We've got Ampur saying it's the question is deep with a deep answer. In organization, it is the chief. Personally, for him, it is him. For each their own. Dexter says the prime mover of change to be from stillness to light of awareness for change within. Boshmi says introspection and reflection is a must at every step. We have Karthik saying it starts with me. Be the change that you wish to see the world. He's quoting Gandhiji. We have Sanjeev saying, as a leader, need to create the required culture that influences the self.
Right. Beautiful answers, beautiful answers. And you all are again absolutely right. All of you are very wise. So yes, I think all the answers, there were varied answers in this, and I think all of that is correct. We have to change, the change starts within. And then it has to be the us in terms of my relational ecosystem. And then the larger system, us, the collective us, the organization, right? We have to change something in all three levels, right? So the first thing starts with us, right? Wherever we are, whoever we are. Whether you are a frontline agent, whether you are a leader, a top leader in the organization, whoever you are, you first have to start asking yourself, how can you be compassionate to yourself? And it can be very, 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 very small things. Like I think Ambuj was saying that somebody, a customer calls and says something, and I'm feeling a certain way. I can ask myself, am I asking like this? Firstly, am I asking the customer like this? Hello, ma'am, how can I help you? Am I talking with the customer like this? Even if you are a leader, you are saying something, but are you giving an inauthentic vibe to your whoever, your customer, your client, your subordinate, whoever you are communicating with? What are you giving to them? And if you are giving them that fast, rushed up, inauthentic vibe, what is the condition inside of you at that point in time? You are also feeling like that. You are not feeling like a person. You are feeling like a headless chicken at that point in time. Can you be mindful of that? Can you ask yourself before you take a call for 30 seconds, how am I feeling? And can I take 3 deep breaths before I get on the next call, the next meeting, the next task? Compassion is not something that takes hours every day. It takes those micro moments. Am I giving myself those micro moments? Do I even believe I matter in all of this? Am I really bringing awareness to myself? And these moments, a kind word toward myself, 2 deep breaths before any call, taking 2 minutes off, going for a round after a difficult call, a difficult customer, that can help me regulate my nervous system, my emotions, showing an act of authentic compassion toward myself. Right? So this is the first step, compassion toward myself. It starts with that belief that I matter over here. And whoever I am, I may be a frontliner, I may be a senior boss. I think all of us are thinking in this way. I need to take care of my subordinate. I need to take care of my customer to get out of that feeling and regulate ourselves, be compassionate with ourselves. That is the first thing. The second thing is in our relational ecosystem. How do we do that? By, like I started even that am I talking in this very performative kind of way with people? If I am, then that is not going to help me or anyone. How can I bring a little bit of authenticity in that conversation? When I'm asking, in very sophisticated language or whatever, that, okay, can I help you? That kind of a thing. Then I also do not have the motive to listen, to truly understand. So can I bring that motive to truly understand, right? So these are some things we already know. What we do not know about relational compassion, or what we do not remind ourselves about relational compassion, is that it is not just niceness. It is not just softness. It is also accountability. It is also drawing boundaries in a healthy way. It is also telling the truth. It is also speaking with clarity. Much of the stress, that happens with leaders and their subordinates is the lack of clarity. They are always scared that they cannot, what they can do, what they cannot do, but they do not always have that clarity on what they can do, how much independence do they have. So these are also compassion. And compassion is also independence. Someone had asked in a previous session, how will a leader take care of all of their employees? They have a large team, they are a senior leader, they have to work with everyone. How do you take care of everyone? The answer would be, you don't need to take care of everyone. You need to give them the understanding and the permission to take care of themselves. So if we just tell people in that training that I had mentioned, if we could just tell people that why not take care of yourself also, to consider themselves in that situation, the leader wouldn't have to take so much care of the people. If the leader tells that the employees that whatever you have, you come and tell me. They don't have to take so much care. They don't have to keep noticing all of the time. If they are not always shouting back at someone whenever they make a mistake, they don't have to invest so much of energy in correcting those. So a lot of burden is gone there. And then after that, there would be some left. Spend your time on that. if there is a conflict, if there is a disagreement, go and have a conversation on that, repair those ruptures, be open and authentic, even if you are a leader. Okay, so leaders have this feeling that they cannot talk about their feelings to their juniors because they are the leader. They must motivate, they must always stay strong. And I'll tell you the impact that has had on people over the years. They think leaders don't have any problem and they are very selfish, they are self-centered, they don't care. When really, the leaders are just trying to stay strong, hold themselves very, very tight. If they could just model some vulnerability, some openness, some authenticity, people would draw much more inspiration from that. So these are some of the things that we can do for our relational intelligence, for our relational compassion. Then on the systemic level, we need to see that we are actually practicing. How can we create systems that are integrating? For example, like I said, stress management should not be separate, and employee welfare should not be separate from performance development, leadership development. Those are not separate things. Those need to come together. And people need to understand how they fit in together. Then only they can use all of that together. It is not separate muscles you build. It is not very useful if we keep them separate. And we also have to build some flexibility so that people can do what they want to do because everyone is different. So I have been speaking for quite a lot of time now. I want to ask you what you think, your ideas, your reflections, your questions now from whatever we are discussing. You can turn on the microphone and tell me, or type in the chat as you prefer.
Requires a lot of groundedness. The person
Yes.
has to be grounded
Groundedness, yes.
to be compassionate in these ways.
Groundedness, yes, absolutely. You had a question before regarding the frontline thing, right? Like how we are going to manage that. Did I answer your question, or did you have any insight on this part?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as I said, it all has to begin with oneself.
Yeah, has to begin from oneself. Absolutely. Relational compassion is directness, very, very beautifully said. Directness plus transparency plus specificity plus respect. Absolutely. Absolutely. So in the 10 minutes that we have, we only have a little time. Let's just discuss what you think about all of this. And I don't know, and if we have missed out any question or anything in the middle.
So I've been watching. I don't think we missed out anything.
All right.
This has, though, however, been an engaging conversation. I think we've seen a lot of insights coming up from the audience, and I think if we were to quickly summarize of stuff of what you've spoken is that it does, for leaders, it doesn't necessarily need to be lonely at the top. It is okay to be able to be vulnerable and continue to be authentic for for your true self to be visible to the teams. Compassion, as we've been hearing from the morning session, it begins from within, right? And it is only displayed in terms of the actions that we are taking. And I think you also have reinforced that and given us a lot of practical tips of what are some of the things that we can do, or what are some of the things that we can help leaders do as part of their journey towards being compassionate. Okay, we have an input that's coming from Dexter. He's saying modeling grounding humanity needs leaders to listen deeply, challenge wisely, nurture inner resilience, staying present to the human story behind each challenge. Thank you for that, Dexter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do we have any other comments, any other questions?
Right. So, I think we did not directly relate this to the term coaching, entire thing that we discussed today. But again, I think we have, right? Everything that we spoke about is something we do in coaching. We listen, we question, we are patient, we breathe, we ask ourselves, how are you feeling? Right? We try to make space for people. So everything that we discussed, we do that in coaching. Just to say that is exactly what coaching is. So any other insights, any other question that you have today? Yes, Anupam, you have something.
So just being a bit controversial, maybe in this comment of mine, but coaching has not been internalized in India as much as it has been overseas, particularly in the Western world. We depend more on mentoring and counseling and whatever. Now, coaching is what takes you closer to realism, I would say, where vulnerability is one of the most important elements. And in our situation, leaders could not be accepted as vulnerable. So leadership in the quality of leadership in India is always dependent on being infallible. Now, that is a very important take from here that if you are vulnerable, probably you will have more logical leadership. It will be more compassionate. It will be more inclusive. So I'm looking forward to that era where this gets internalized, where coaching becomes an integral part of our growth. And it's not just mentoring, because mentoring is based on historical data, and coaching is more presence. Yeah. So just a comment. I don't know, people may not agree with it, but that's my own view.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Coaching is a very basic skills, right? So that is the reason we also do trainings like leader as coach. Right. Coaching is something very basic. I think it has got no clash with mentoring too. Coaching skills. Yes, coaching is even more basic. ICF has now added in its competencies that coaches can also share knowledge with their clients. So that takes it quite closer to mentoring, as EMCC defines mentoring. Want to say something? You are on
I
mute.
was just saying that mentoring, as understood, has been just knowledge of that space. So
Right.
mentoring is based on your past experience, how you navigated that space, and it is very kind of topical. Whereas the mentoring that probably ICF is looking at is more widespread. So as a result, it's not understood similarly in our context actually. So
Right.
mentoring differentiates itself in the initial stages of your induction in an organization. Mentoring is important so that you are familiarized with the culture and the techniques of the organization. But beyond that, I think coaching is what will take us all forward in new kind of leadership styles. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, we have a lot of space to grow in our understanding of coaching and compassionate leadership skills and abilities. I really want to share something here. I was to share this. I forgot. You reminded me. Thank you for that. I have heard leaders, like I have been a very rebellious person. Okay. So I realized at one point that my rebellion was because I was taking people very, very seriously. Telling for not even taking these leaders very seriously. So, and some of these leaders have told me this later, that, you know, you please don't need to listen to me that much with that much of intensity. It is okay to listen to me a little loosely. And that was because I went and had those conversations with them. Even though that sounded rebellious or whatever. And this is what, and now having coached leaders and all, this is what I have learned. Probably most of them don't need to be taken so seriously, because that is a huge responsibility. Some leader, you see, these comments that come, you have to work 70 hours and 90 hours and all. Why do leaders say that? Because they are workaholics. Their minds are completely entangled in that. Probably they were not meaning that every employee in the organization need to work 90 hours. They are just saying out of passion, they say whatever. And who takes this very seriously are the people below them. And that causes the problem. Why they are taking seriously? They are thinking, okay, if I can press my subordinates a little more, I'll please my leader. That may or may not be the case. Now, if this person would have said, they have just said, now if they cannot say one word that is not appropriate, to be so politically correct all the time, even for leaders, that is like walking on eggshells. And I think not taking people so seriously at face value, rather than seeing the intent and the purpose of what they are saying, that is also part of compassion. To think if the leader has to always say the right thing, the politically correct thing, they will be burnt out. And this is happening to all of us. We always have to think 1,000 times before we just say something. If we say something and somebody doesn't agree, come to us respectfully and say, okay, did you even ask? Even before saying, ask, did you really mean this? If you think that is too extreme, come and ask, did you really mean this? And then if you disagree, come and say that you disagree. Now, I think these are the policy level things, or, communication level things that leaders need to do. Let people know, hey, I'm a human being, I can make mistakes. If you have a confusion, come and ask me or tell me what you think. Rather than, stewing things up in your head or implementing something extreme right away, from romanticizing or making me God or a demon. Why don't you come and ask me? Why don't you just consider me a human? I think this is the problem leaders have done. They have made themselves as God. And either they stay gods or they become demons. They don't stay humans. And I think this is the core message. This is the only message I have for each person in the entire systems. We need to become more humans, not gods, not demons, humans.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Anindita. And I think that's touched upon a lot of, touched upon a chord with all of us here. So we are at the end of our conversation today. Please keep posting in your messages if you have some for Anindita. And while we do that, we'd like to take another group photograph. So if everybody can switch on their cameras, when we can take pictures. Nandini has posted the link to the feedback and the CCU forms, and she'll continue to do that as we end the session. But Nandini, I hope you're taking photographs of all of us. Just give us a thumbs up when you're done. I also want to smile, otherwise my pictures will be with the mouth half open. I think we should be done by now. So there are comments coming in. Anindita, thank you so much for the conversation today. Like I said, brought in a lot of practical insights, made this very engaging. And we do also have a certificate of appreciation for you. We will be sending it to you shortly. Nandini, if you are around and if you can put it up on the screen. While everybody else, thank you so much for joining in today. If you can continue to post your comments, feedback, insights on the chat group. It will be nice to know from you. Of course, our feedback form does ask you, but if you have some things that you want to talk about here, anything that you took back as insights, please to post it here. Yes, we need a more defined lunch break. Are there other feedback taken?
Thanks, Nandita, for making it. I think we all enjoyed who stayed back. I think majority who started off stayed back for the whole half-day workshop. Thanks to you, Nandita. Thanks to all the attendees, their constant focus in all the sessions, their questions, their queries, their suggestions, their views. Everything was so fantastic, pouring in from all the side. I really am also thankful to the team of ICF Mumbai Managing Committee who really work hard to make it make it happen every month. It's not a joke. Well, our next session is coming up on 20th of December, which is going to be in-person event. So make it. We'll have kind of lovely speakers like Nandita and others who really made it today. Besides that, we'll have some celebrations going on there. You'll have learning with fun. So make it. Don't leave it. Don't drop it. I think it's meant for you. Personally thankful here for this today's session to Ann, Dexter, behind the scene, our own Nandini. Of course, she's a virtual assistant. And of course, all the chapter members who keep on making us dance to their tunes. Thank you very much, everyone. You want to, I'm sorry, it is not a word of thanks. So, and if you have planned anything, please go ahead.
No, that's, I was just going to say thank you, but Sanjeev, thank you so much for taking that up. And it's on behalf of the entire ICF Mumbai chapter team, everybody who's joined in, and a special thanks to all our speakers today. We look forward to continuing to create such insightful learning sessions for you as we progress ahead.
And a
Thank
very
you,
special
and
vote of thanks to Anne, because you may not know that Anne is Director Technology, but she accepted the challenge to convene this entire event, from nothing. And fantastic. Thank you. Thank you to all the speakers for supporting Anne. Thank you to all of you for registering and attending, because for Anne and all of us here at ICF Mumbai, this is a wonderful recognition of the effort that we are putting in to make sure that the topics that we have are relevant and useful to you, not just interesting, but also useful. So thank you, Anne. Congratulations. May you do many more.
No more.
thank you, Anne. And it was my first, ICF chapter, the seminar, and it was webinar, and it was beautiful. I enjoyed every moment, learned a lot. And it wasn't boring, 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours. It was interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Seriously, Anne, may you do many more.
Bye.
Anindita, I'm sorry we couldn't put up your certificate. Nandini seemed to have lost network connectivity, but I will ensure that I send it across to you. Oh, it's coming in. Oh, yes, of course. Thank you so much, Nandini.
Thank you.
Great. So we've had a good, interesting conversation today, and I know we are holding you back, coming in the way of lunch for you. So if you can continue to post your messages, or if you would like to log off, you could do that. Thank you again for joining in. And thank you again to our speakers, Anindita, especially you.
Thanks, ICF Mumbai team. Great job. Great masterclass once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Have a lovely weekend.
Wish you all too.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So where are you based, Anita?
I am based in Kolkata.
Oh, lovely, lovely. So you know Sharmi?
Yeah.
Very good. Very nice.
Thank you, Anindita, for a great session. Thank you for accepting our invite.
Thank you for inviting.
And if you're here on 20th December, please be our guest at Mumbai ICF in-person event.
Someday would love to meet you. 20th December or not.
We look forward, Anita.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dexter. Thanks, Ann. Thanks.
Thanks,
Nandini.
Sanjeev.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Nandini, and thanks, everyone. Bye then. Bye for now. Enjoy the Saturday. What's left of it. Hope you have a very compassionate and caring Saturday. Yourself.
Starting with ourselves.
Yes. Inside out.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.